y dos, y dos, una, y dos, una, y dos.
Hello and welcome to Cortesnyc Livestream, the podcast. This show broadcasts twice a week out of New York City. We are your hosts, Cortesnyc
and Carla de Puerto Rico.
And on the show, we talk about art, creativity, city life from a Latino perspective. I'm a visual artist.
And I'm a singer.
And this is episode 26, Art Trumps All.
As always, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Podbean. Please subscribe and rate and review our podcast. You can also find us on social media on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram.
And don't forget, June 24th, Sunday, I will be at the Street Art Expo in Astoria, Queens. So if you're in the New York area, go to their website, check it out, find out the prices. I'll be there sketching, signing, and selling original artwork, as well as launching my new merchandise. And you can see some of my current merchandise at cortesnyc.bigcartel.com. For more information about the Street Art Expo, go to streetartexpo.com.
We're going to have the links on the description box.
And a shout out to all my people on Instagram, all our listeners, our followers, people rating and reviewing on iTunes. Carla?
Yes, thank you for your comments, your likes, and keep listening.
And we're ready for this World Cup, right?
Yes, Colombia.
All right, so we're going to talk about politics, art, political art.
Ooh, controversial.
No, not controversial. Doesn't have to be controversial.
Okay.
At least from my little bit of research, I realized that it doesn't have to be controversial.
Okay, so let's learn more.
So I decided to talk about political art. I've done political art in the past. I think graffiti in general is associated with political art or politics.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we can get into it. We can kind of explore it. But there's always been an association with it. I like political themes. I like especially anti-establishment kind of themes. I think that kind of, rings with me, that ideology. Even though at times, sometimes the politicians are more anti-establishment than we are. Mm-hmm. And that's the weird thing when politics goes upside down like that.
Yeah.
We're living in some crazy times right now.
We are.
This episode was definitely our political piece. This is our political art, this episode, and this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to also dive into why this is also a political piece. And I think by the end of this conversation, you guys will understand as well that you guys are participants in this political piece, in this political art, just by listening and supporting. But all right, so political art. I tried to say, well, if I'm going to talk about political art, how do I define it, right? I look for a definition. There's no fucking definition. You guys be my guests. Go online. Look for a definition. I challenge you.
There's none.
Look for a definition, a clear definition of what is political art. Apparently, political and art are two words that they're not a thing. Together, they're not a thing. So you can't say political art. You can say a book is political. So I'm looking in Wikipedia and I find political music, political novels, political posters. So posters falls under the category of art. So does music.
Right.
They can be political. But there's no such thing as political art. So if somebody says, I'm a political artist, it makes no sense.
But is it like a concept, or it's just like not even the concept exists, and people don't want to call art political art?
I think the problem with the definition of political art, and again, I challenge our listeners because you guys are so brilliant. I know our listeners are brilliant people, very intelligent, very artistic people. I challenge you guys to find and look amongst yourselves. Can you find a definition of specifically political art? The problem is that political is an open description. Something being political, because it doesn't necessarily mean governmental or anti-governmental. No. Political means a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so, art is an open it's an open definition. Art is hard to define, right? So how are you going to define something that's political and something that's art?
Can we say that art is always political then?
There, now you're jumping the gun, but yes, that's where we're going to end up at the end of this conversation, is that yes, all art is political.
And that's why it cannot be
There's no
a
such thing.
concept of political art because all art tries to convey a message.
All right, so the show's over. Thank you, guys. Carla has concluded the show. she's gotten it. No, yes, it's true. What you're saying is true, and we'll discuss it. But it's good that we're all on board. Yes, that is true. So political, because art by nature is political. And
Right.
so I was looking on Wikipedia and I was trying to find a definition or things, and I'm seeing feminist art. So art that's feminist. So you have art, and then you have specifically a genre of politics or social politics, feminism. So there's art that is feminist. There is not political art, but I could find maybe communist art.
Right.
Or I can find, if you want to talk about specifically politics, you could find, let's say, civil rights art.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So there's that's another reason why, let's say, graffiti is associated with anti-establishment, but not all graffiti is anti-establishment. And graffiti is public art, or let's say street art. But I mean, there's the street art that is propaganda.
Right.
That is not anti-establishment.
Right.
That is actually pro-establishment.
I think maybe it started as anti-establishment and going.
No, I think it's both. It depends what side you're on, and it depends who's making the
Right.
art.
That's
Honestly,
right. Yeah.
Because you can have the establishment enforcing propaganda art, posters and paintings of their leaders.
Right.
And then you have people who deface it and cross it out and put mustaches on them.
Well, but I'm talking more about the writers, not about all.
This conversation's gonna get good. I have a tall glass of wine.
I'm talking more about the art, the graffiti writers, and not all street art as we know of posters and stickers and flyers and advertisement in the street. But I'm talking more about graffiti writers. Maybe you know more about this, but this is my understanding. It started as, let's go against the rules and let's express ourselves, and let's have the freedom to do so in the trains and on the streets and going against the establishment. But I feel like now we have even graffiti writers that are establishment. That's what I mean.
It's propaganda.
Right.
Because now you have street artists and graffiti artists that are being hired by corporations to do a McDonald's ad, a Nike ad, a whatever ad. So now we have propaganda. And you have street artists doing political pieces, pro-politics, meaning like Shepard Fairey doing the Obama poster. You know, you have a street artist who's doing propaganda. Now, it might be, to most of us, it might not seem like propaganda because we might have been pro-Obama.
Exactly. But it's still.
But if you are anti-Obama, it's propaganda. I mean, again, let me go through some of the things that I'm seeing in Wikipedia. But you have protest art, you have activism, activist art, you have cultural art, you have something war art, war propaganda art, pro-war, or war posters, something promoting an agenda, a military agenda. It depends what side of the politics you're on.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do really with the government. Sometimes it has to do with society. So they say, like, for example, New York street art, they say subway art, graffiti art started at a time in New York where there was a recession in the city. There was actually an economic recession. And because the poor communities or the minority communities, were being affected the most and ignored the most, they felt like taking it out on the system. And the only easiest example to see for them was, let's say, the train system,
right,
that was running through the whole city. And they felt like, well, if I could write my protest statement, if I can say fuck you and fuck the government and fuck the mayor and fuck everybody on the subway, they'll see it. And that was their way of getting that word out. And of course, people started putting their signature on it and eventually wanted to get notoriety for their own style. And it developed into an art form. But yeah, I think in New York, there was an economic reason, a motivation, a social economic motivation behind, subway art. It didn't just happen because of style, know, or specifically, people were political artists. Right. I think they were just artists. They are not even artists. They were just people who wanted to say something. And I think that's where we're gonna get into those kind of definitions. I started looking around and I found one article online that says, what is political art? And it said, political art has been a part of the social landscape of the world for centuries. Art has always been used as a way to reflect society and shed light on issues of the day. Political art has been around from the beginning of the United States history, reflected in such iconic images as the donkey representing the Democratic Party. Today, the New Yorker magazine has gained fame for its political art. And then they describe some of the different categories. Social political art, which is art that is used to help the public understand a particular social or political issue. They talk about propaganda. Propaganda is, although artists may create pieces that don't necessarily present their political leanings, political art can be used as propaganda. In other words, even if I'm not affiliated with a specific political side, party, my art can be used to either as a pro or as a negative for a political purpose, as propaganda.
Yeah.
During the World War II, the United States and the Nazi regime used propaganda to garner support for their citizens. So during World War II, that's a perfect example of what we were just saying earlier. In World War II, you can say, well, there's propaganda because the Nazis, and there's propaganda because the communists. But the United States did it also. Yeah. They did their own version of propaganda, which was a pro-USA type of movement instead of a pro-world movement. Then there's protest. Political art has also been used by citizens as a form of protest against totalitarian governments, or a way to let politicians know that they are unhappy with the way things are happening. In the 1980s, posters were created by AIDS activists who wanted to let the US government know how dissatisfied they were. Right. So as a protest, you're not necessarily associated with a political party. Right. You might just be protesting, period. And that's, I think, what subway art kind of came out of. Nobody was really it wasn't a politically funded or politically, associated movement. It was people that just wanted to say something for themselves. And eventually, yes, different sects or gangs with certain points of view started to get their message out, and activism started to happen and be born out of it. And then another category they talk about, which is a category that I usually kind of take more part of, is satire. Political issues are often serious in nature, but however, political art is a way of helping citizens of the country see some of the humor in these ridiculous politics. So satire, political satire, where for me, a lot of times when I see things that are happening in the news, if I've done a few paintings and I'll post them, a few paintings of Donald Trump or whatever, in the beginning I was just frustrated and I was like, well, fuck Trump. And it was kind of like my own little protest. Eventually I started seeing maybe the humor in this, well, this is kind of ridiculous. And I started drawing him more in a humorous way. Yeah. And I think political satire is something that you're more familiar with. It's the type of political art that is spread out further in magazines and newspapers and things like that, right? That's what you see the most.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that in these years, we have seen a lot of satire in newspapers and magazines because people are just tired and they're using everything they can to make fun of the situation. And
even political satire as far as videos. I mean, SNL, Saturday Night Live, is political satire. Yeah. It's acting. It's drama. It's writing. Right? And that's political art, and that's political satire. Music. People have made songs about Trump and making fun of the situation and making fun of some of his politics and all that. So I guess I opened up a can of worms with choosing a topic like political art.
Yes.
Because it's bigger than just saying, I like to paint pictures of politicians.
No, exactly. And it's going more, it's not just a negative side and a positive side, it's all together. It's all happening at the same time. So we have a lot to talk about.
All right, so I'm going to now move into this other article that I found on a more human level, away from flags and countries and governments and all that, but on a human level, it's making a statement that all art is political. And I'm going to read some of this. So art, for your sake, it says, we don't have to debate whether art should be political. It always is. They talk about Aristotle, which is an old Greek philosopher, right? So he says, when Aristotle concluded that man by nature is a political animal, he hit two nails on the head. Like all the great apes that we're most commonly known with, chimpanzees, right? We are also social creatures. So if you put yourself in that point and you say, well, look at the animal kingdom. Right. There's politics amongst animals, right? There's social politics and how they structure themselves and how they express themselves establishes their politics, who they align themselves with and who they don't. Well, humans are like that as well in everything that we do, in the clothing that we wear, in the music we listen to, in the words we choose to speak, in the podcasts that we make.
Right.
Everything that we do is political. It's not a coincidence that in this time we were motivated to make a bilingual podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With a Latino,
exactly,
showcasing a Latino background. Not so much to rub it in people's faces, but more to say, you know what, there's nothing wrong with this.
And
why is this a bad thing? Yeah, why is this a bad thing?
Right.
So the article continues. It says, socially by definition implies society and consequentially social politics. So social politics it exists in the animal kingdom. It also exists amongst ourselves as human beings, aside from actual government politics. Mm-hmm. And the freedom and equally the prohibition of individuals to express themselves through any means by which the influence is cast into the societal cauldron must then be political. In other words, whether you're trying to stop expression or increase people's freedom for expression, it's all political. It's all going to end up being political. And it's hard to imagine that art would not be a part of this, because
Right.
art is created by human beings. It talks about also symbols. And I think right now we're inundated with symbols, right? Because we're living in a social media environment where we're constantly seeing symbols all around us. Well, visual art, written art, movies, music, everything we talked about, all the mediums, use symbols constantly. We talked about it in its previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these symbols are loaded.
Yeah.
And they use an example in this article. They say, for us here walking on the land, when we give the thumbs up, if I stick my thumb up at you, it means everything's good, everything's okay.
Right.
If you and I were scuba diving and I give you the thumbs up, it doesn't mean everything's okay. It means let's go up. Let's go up for air.
Okay.
In order for me to tell you everything is okay, I have to make a circle with my fingers and give you the okay symbol for okay. Because thumbs up means let's go up. Means there's an urgency to go up. So this article uses that as an example, how symbols, depending on the context and depending on where you are, can mean different things. It's the same thing with art.
Right.
So I can create a piece of art right now that maybe in this political climate might be reactionary. It might create some reaction. But in another time, maybe in 100 years, might not mean shit to anybody. In 100 years, who's going to give a shit about Trump?
That is true.
But right now, if I do something about Trump, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Or if I do something about whatever, maybe something about race, because right now race is a big deal. It means everything to the world. But maybe in 100 years, it won't mean so much.
Yeah.
Or maybe in a different culture where black and white is not a problem. Maybe in another culture, it'll be a different race that's a problem. So the article goes into saying that another thing about political art, and that makes all art political and makes it, depending on the context, political or not, is time. Time that passes.
Yes, it depends on the historic moment when it's happening, and then that's why everybody wants to express themselves or get to know. Just express themselves with whatever artistic method they can. But I feel that in a way we are privileged to have the education, or at least a little background of art and of information and of knowledge and of research, because I feel like now with social media, it's like what happened with radio when radio was a thing. People were just listening to radio, but they didn't have the mechanism to identify real information from wrong and false information. So I feel like for us, people that are listening to this podcast, we are privileged to have like a sense of research and to look for more. But there's a lot of people out in social media and more now that they're just looking at stuff and reacting, but they don't really do a research about it. And I feel like that's also part of what is political art, because there's a lot of articles out there and information that is false, but maybe it can be like a satire, and it's a written satire,
and it's used as
real political information that people are taking as real.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen false, fake information,
fake
and you
news.
find out that the image was some sort of Photoshop joke.
Exactly.
That somebody else is using for their political agenda.
Exactly. So I feel like, and this happened even before, like we were talking about propaganda and all that. If you're not, and it's not if you're not smart enough, it's if you didn't have the privilege of having an education to investigate more about what you're looking at, then you don't know if that's real or not, and you're just believing anything and anything that is out there.
Yeah, and I think being an artist right now in this times and future artists, new artists that are coming up, you have a responsibility to really think about what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And who you are affiliating with yourself with also. Think about it. I mean, right now, the biggest thing in the news right now, and just entertaining me right now, is this whole Drake, Pusha T beef. I've always been a fan of Pusha T more than Drake.
But then Pusha T is associated now with Kanye. And
who politically, even Pusha T says he doesn't agree with his politics, with Kanye's politics, and he's talked to him in his face about it. But the point is, rap beef that is now even political beef, and it's even using social politics, social media politics, and it's a battle between Drake and Pusha T. But it went from lyrics to now politics.
Politics, personal, race, society, is everything and anything.
And that's a perfect example where an art form that I always appreciated, rap, hip hop, is, it's because of the social climate that we're in. It's a social, political battle, and it's more social politics than anything more now. And people feed into it with the likes and the reshares and all this stuff. And these are the times that we're living in.
Yeah.
Everything's political.
Everything.
Can't escape it.
Si lo estás haciendo todo igual, no tiene ningún color el paso que hace. Separa menos tiempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Sipping Merlot and talking culture.
And politics.
All right, culture talk.
Ooh.
Let's talk about this Trumpecito. Trompeton.
Trompito.
This is our episode to vent. So if you guys are pro-Trump, buckle up. Get ready for us to vent, because we are definitely anti-Trump.
Or just skip the next 20 minutes.
If you are anti-Trump, use this opportunity to explore some of your thoughts about it. We're not going to drag Trump politically for policies and things like that. We're not, hardcore political people or anything like that. What I decided to do is I started analyzing, what is my beef with Trump? Why do I hate this man? Like, I don't know him personally.
Right.
But I've seen him in the media for years. I'm a New Yorker, so I've seen him in New York media for years. He's done some really despicable things that I can never imagine doing. And just on those things alone, I hate the man. And then being the things that he's done and said against, Latin culture and Latin people, I just can't.
Did you hate him before he became president, or now you hate him more?
I didn't like him before.
You didn't like him?
I never liked him.
Okay.
He was the symbol of everything that was wrong with New York.
Okay.
He was Mr. Monopoly. He was the rich man. He was the guy the businessman that was buying and selling and boasting about all his money, and then arrogant, and then insensitive to the typical New Yorker.
That kind of people is always like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like, I never understood growing up in the times that I grew up, how can you have in the 80s and 90s, let's say, a Pablo Escobar in Colombia, a drug dealer, building communities and giving back to the people. Right. Being super wealthy, granted, he was horrible and he did some horrible things and some horrible crimes, but how can you have a man make so much money and give back to the community, and he's loved by the community because of that, And then here in New York, we have so many wealthy people that just could give a fuck about the community
Right.
and want to bury us on top of that.
Right.
Not just give a fuck, they want to bury us. They want to put their foot on our neck.
But first, they want to utilize us.
Of course.
They want to use us. So we
And if they can't use me, they want to use my kids. They want to use my offspring.
Exactly.
And if they can't use my offspring, they want to use my great offspring. But they
Exactly.
want to use us.
Yeah. So we build your buildings, we clean your floors, we serve your people, and then after that you paid us like a misery, and after that then you just want to get rid of all of us because what the fuck, man.
Right, so I mean, you guys see where we stand politically. That kind of, I think we just expressed our politics.
Yeah.
Right there. I don't know if it aligns perfectly with any political party right now, but
I mean,
you guys see where we're coming from politically there.
It's not only, like, for me, it's not only the policies, or now talking about him as a president, it's not only the policies and all this craziness, but it's just the ignorance, the blunt ignorance, and now nobody does anything. Like, everybody keeps leaving, everybody keeps running, and I'm guilty of that, because I cannot just stop my life and say, no, I'm going to Trump Tower to protest or I'm going to Washington to protest, and then expect something to change, because I know it's not going to happen. But there's so many people in the United States that they, like we were talking in the section before, they have the privilege of information, researching and all that, and they still like blind, and he's still there.
All right.
It's incredible.
So that's our political part of this. Now let's just talk about, and this is why I wanted to start talking about this topic, and I wanted to bring it to the podcast, is there's a problem with Trump from a Latino perspective, because that's what this podcast is about, is from a Latino stance, Latin cultural stance. There's a problem, there's a conflict between Trump's culture, the culture of Trump, and Latino culture, and it clashes. And I think we already said some of them that clash. Okay, number one that we just said, putting your foot on the neck of poor people,
right,
clashes with Latin culture and what we're raised with. Not all, but an ideal that we have, something that we strive for.
Right.
You know, we're not perfect people. You know, and Latin culture is not perfect, but we strive for charity. We strive towards charity. We strive towards mercy for people, understanding of poor people. That's what we strive for, because we come from humble beginnings, and we know that, and we know that there's, you know, a majority of immigrants, Latin Americans, and even back at home, people that have left their home, you know, country because of their humble beginnings.
Right.
You know, you can't imagine coming to the United States and seeing that a political figure, the most powerful person in the country, is somebody who would step on poor people, or step on people that are weaker, or step on, you know, people that are not safe.
Yeah, I will say that even if it's just talk, you expect your politics to be, we're gonna help the community, and we're gonna build up people, and we're gonna give to those that don't have enough. Even if it's just talk, you expect the people that are in charge
to set that
to
tone.
say that, and to say, no, we have to help each other, we have to build each other. It doesn't matter, like here in the United States, that is Democrat or Republican. I feel like the presidents before, they tried to do that in a way, because they knew that even whites are on welfare and they need help too. So to have now this president that he doesn't care about this, and he doesn't set a tone for it, and not even that, but he says then, well, not only you're not generating money for our country, but it's like, and you're worth nothing, and you better go, or you're going to jail, or let's see what you're gonna do. It's like, what? Really?
I mean, so I think we kind of pointed something there when we say, at least say it, right?
Exactly.
Well,
because
so why do we even have a fucking guy standing there called president? Is he running the country really? Is he really running the country?
No, there's
a whole
branch.
team.
Exactly.
There's entire teams of people actually running the country. The only reason we put your stupid ass up there on the platform is for you to talk for us, for you to set the tone, and don't talk to me. Talk to the other motherfuckers. Talk to my neighbor. Talk to my neighbor's neighbor. Set a tone that lets everybody know, hey, we're all going to get along here. We're all going to be fine. Everybody's going to be okay. You know, you can't stand in front of a crowd of people and put one against the other.
Exactly.
If you stand, you know, we have you there for a reason. We have you there for a reason. You could have done this as a private citizen. If you wanted to talk all this crap, you could have done all that shit in private. As a private citizen, you were doing it for years as a business owner. You had your own platforms to speak. You had a TV show. You had all kinds of times to say the things you wanted to say. You never said this shit when you were on TV.
Yeah.
You never came out on TV and said all this crazy shit on your TV show because it would ruin your ratings.
Yeah.
But as a president, you come up and you say these things, and it's crazy. So yeah. So Latin culture, we expect you that you would speak, that you would set a tone of peace, that you would speak to myself towards myself for my causes as well as my neighbor, and set a tone of we're all gonna get along, we're all gonna cooperate, we're all gonna move as a group, as a unit, and he's not.
Yeah.
He's not doing that, and that goes against our thinking because especially in Latin culture, we're looking for unity.
Yeah.
And I think that's core to the Latin community is we've been spending the past 100 or maybe 200 years trying to unite, trying to find unity amongst all the different cultures, all the different countries,
Right.
because we're trying to move in one direction.
Right.
You know, we've had divisions for money or divisions for politics or whatever we might have had, but we're trying to even unify people from different flags in the Latin community, right?
Yeah,
We're trying to
exactly.
unify Colombians, Venezuelans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, you know, even Cubans that are communists, and we still try to unify with them and say, you know what, we're all Latino at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's something that Trump is not supporting.
Yeah.
So that goes against our core of what we believe in, right? Another thing, and I'll move on to other subject, is family.
Right.
His sense of family is twisted.
Yeah.
You know, Latino culture, we have a lot of divorce. We have a lot of broken homes. I know we're not perfect people, but we don't promote that. We strive for something better, right? We strive for unification.
And even if that's the situation, Latino families, in a way, they stay together and they try to keep the family together, and they try to treat each other with love and respect. And it's not in all families, but yeah, if there's a divorce, fathers and mothers, they're together raising the child, and he's just not doing that at all. I've never seen him in a loving way to his younger son, at least the younger, because he's the youngest, and
Yeah.
he has problems too.
I've never seen any
And
images
us
of him like playing
hugging
with him,
him. Playing with him, talking with him, nothing at all.
And then him with Melania. I mean, Melania is another problem. I mean, shit, like, I can't stand that woman. Like, I have a hard
Out of
time
words.
with. Because I don't want to offend people that
Exactly.
might feel a certain way, but I have a hard time with that lady. I have a hard time because I get the picture of her background.
Yeah.
And how she came about, and it's not picture perfect, and I don't want to judge that, but the way that they're presenting themselves makes me feel like judging them.
I think the problem is exactly like what you're saying, the way that they presented it, the way the media is treating her, let's say in comparison to Michelle Obama or whomever come before, but specifically Michelle Obama. If Michelle Obama did half of the things she have done, Obama will never have been a president.
No.
At all. And then I feel like maybe that's why you feel a certain way, is because people don't judge her the same way they will judge somebody else or a person of color. And she's an immigrant, but because she's associated with Trump, she's seen as, I don't know, a nice.
I mean, okay, so that goes into I think the way we view teachers, right? Let's use a different example, different leaders in our lives. So teachers, religious people. I'm not going to use priests in that because that has a whole other.
Yeah, no.
That's tough because that's another thing. That's another issue. But let's say teachers, right? School teachers. We view school teachers a certain way. We have them in front of us because they're supposed to uplift and set a certain standard for us to learn from and to strive for. Are we in a point in this country where we just want to say, well, our leaders don't have to lead, they don't have to be role models? I think our leaders are supposed to be role models, especially if I'm paying for you.
Right.
Especially, like my entertainers don't have to be role models. I don't expect rappers to be role models. I don't expect athletes to be role models because I'm not paying for you. But I elected you or didn't elect you, and I still have to pay taxes towards this country, and you're a public servant. Mm-hmm. You should be a role model.
Yeah.
You should be a role model because you're a public servant.
Right.
And we're at a point right now where politically in this country, it feels like people are trying to almost bend the rule and say, no, they don't have to be role models.
No, exactly. Like,
and I don't expect them to be perfect. In other words, if there was one scandal, Trump was found in an affair, I'd be like, okay, fuck it. You know what I mean? I get it. We're human.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But this guy is an example of anti-role model, a person who does not want to be a role model at all. So why is he president?
Yeah, I mean, and even if in my classes when we were talking about PR and public relations for politics, my professor was saying they had to be so careful to see which person they were going to elect to represent a certain city or state. He has to be the picture perfect man. Let's say if he's a man,
right.
Has to be married. It has to be young or with a sense of community. He has to say certain things. They have to clean all his records to make sure that he's okay. So how is that this changed? Because this guy definitely doesn't, he has nothing in the checklist.
I think this goes into American society. I don't know if it's global society, because I'm hearing that this happens also in other countries, but maybe we're in a time right now, political climate around the world, where people are trying to break that and say politicians don't have to be role models.
Maybe,
they don't have to be examples for us to follow. Then I don't understand why the fuck am I following you?
Right.
How
is it that you're the face of a country?
That's the thing. You're a leader, you're a role model, you're a leader. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to lead so that we follow. And if we can't follow, then who are you leading? Mm-hmm. And then what about the rest of us that are just going to sit back and be like, oh, hell no. Right now, I feel like the country's in a standstill.
Right.
We're just standing here waiting. Waiting every day. We're waiting to find out that, nope, we're done with this already.
And related it back to Latinos, it's just that it's so obvious his relationship to our community and the way that he treats us.
Mexicans, the Mexican president, Puerto Ricans, it's crazy.
Mexicans since the beginning, Mexicans are rapists. The gangs, when he said that message in the Senate, he basically said that the gangs are a majority of Latinos. Then he called the people on the gangs animals, and I understand that he was talking about people on gangs, but because he said that the majority of the people in the gangs are Latinos, and then he said that these people are animals, if you make the correlation, it's very simple. He's saying that Latinos and immigrants are animals. They all come to be part of the gangs, and they all come to kill us, and that's just not right. And then you go into how he treated Puerto Rico, that he said that, oh, Puerto Rico, you're taking our budget, you're using he basically said, you're using too much money from our budget, and this has been the greatest response to an emergency. And now you see the news, and a Harvard study just said that in Puerto Rico, there were 4,645 deaths, in comparison to what the government was saying that it was 70 deaths. I don't know. It's just it's so obvious that he just don't care, and he has never cared, and it's just. I
mean, for me, the thing that got me, that just made me realize that we have the devil in front of us in the flesh, is this whole thing with the Central Park.
Oh yeah, that goes.
The old case from my time, from the 90s, the Central Park, quote unquote wolf pack.
Yeah.
And now he had tried so hard, putting out a newspaper, an article, and everything in the newspaper, in the local newspaper.
For what?
To say that these guys should be incarcerated and all that, and then for him now as president to say, yeah, no, but still, but DNA doesn't prove anything. And he's like, no, they're not innocent. So if you guys don't know about it, just look up Central Park Wolfpack, and you'll hear the whole story.
Yeah.
But these guys were imprisoned. They were teenagers. They were imprisoned and they were innocent.
Mm-hmm.
They were just caught up at a time where there was like a lot of kids running around the streets and this, that, and the other and doing wild things, and they were wilding out. And there was some rapist that ended up raping a white lady in Central Park, and then the police took in whatever kids they could find. So they found whatever it was, 5 or 6 minority kids, Latino and black, and they incarcerated them. And they got them to make false confessions, and they put them in jail for a long period of time. And then they got released because DNA tests said that they weren't innocent. And Donald Trump still claims, nope, they're guilty.
I think there's a documentary about it.
Yes.
So the relationship with Donald Trump is that he placed an advertisement on the newspapers, trying to blame the kids for what happened, and basically trying to make the kids go to jail, right?
Yeah, because basically what he's a real estate person. So for him, these wildings and things going on in Central Park, his whole thing is like property value. And his whole thing is, if I can be a leader for these real estate people to show them that like I'm trying to raise the property value and trying to clean up this city, then I'm going to be a leader for these people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak for them.
Right. Yeah, so, and then another thing about Trump and Latinos is that I feel like it's creating fear and stress in Latino communities.
Yes.
Like,
and I'm an American Latino American, and I feel it. That's the thing. I can't imagine how real immigrants must feel right now in this country, because you leave your country for a better future, and you come here and you find this animal
right,
as the leader of this country. It's like you're looking for an opportunity, you end up working at a fucking horrible factory with a horrible boss, and you're just like, well, fuck it, I guess I have to. I'm here already. You know what I mean? And people are telling you, well, it's only 4 more years. It's okay.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Deal with it. This country, we change leaders every 4 years. I don't.
Yeah.
But no, like it's horrible. It's horrible because it's ruining what the United States used to mean, what North America and the United States used to mean for Latin America. In a way, maybe it's making us look at each other a little more, the Latin community, and say, how can we help each other out? Because we're the only ones that can help each other. But, for me, the most despicable thing was the way he was treating the Puerto Rican issue, Puerto Rico and the hurricane issue and all that, the way he treated it, his lack of attention to it, and his dismissal of the needs. And to this day, the fact that he's...
And still, exactly.
Yeah, irrelevant, he's indifferent to it.
And that...
And the way that he treated the way he spoke of and treated the Mexican government as if the Mexican government or the president of Mexico works for him.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Because if I'm your neighbor, in the Latin culture, if I'm your neighbor, my house is my house, your house is your house. I'm not going to go to your house and pretend that your house is my house.
And I think the only problem there was that the president of Mexico didn't have his pants well put to come back at Trump and say, no, but exactly, that's your house, this is my house. I'm not paying for things that you want to do in your house. But like, we're not doing it, and we...
But at the same time, politics are politics, and
yeah, I know.
I have to say, I've been confronted in my life by ignorant Americans like that, and the best move isn't to confront back, but to look at it and say, these people are fucking animals. They don't know what they're doing, and play the long game.
Yeah, okay. He didn't have to come back and say something straight like that. But maybe a statement well written, not the ignorant way that Trump did it, but well written and well said in a smart way. I think that was needed.
Maybe. Well, that's why we're here right now, talking politics.
Yep.
You wanted me to teach you, right? This is street reality.
All right, I got my wine refill, my Merlot.
Okay, cheers.
Let's go. Hablando español.
Hablando español. First one is politics.
Politics, política.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Política. All right, there you go. You see, I'm good.
Next one is politicians.
Politicians, políticos.
Yes.
So you know why I'm speaking Spanish better right now, right?
Why?
I have my Colombia jersey on.
Oh, he's ready for the World Cup. He has been ready for the last 2 weeks wearing that jersey every single day. I'm like, Chris, but you don't need to wear it right now.
Well, I'm wearing my Colombia jersey. I'm wearing my away Colombia jersey right now. So
Wow.
Yes.
So this is el
Hablando
español
español.
está activado.
It's yeah.
Okay. Next one is
Yes.
message.
Message, mensaje. See? Boom. You're speaking to a Colombian right now.
Pero ¿qué le dio? Next one is society.
Sociedad.
Nice.
Sociedad.
Okay. And next one is changes.
Changes. Cambios.
Ooh, nice.
See?
Okay. Next one is evolución.
Evolution?
Yes.
Evolución.
Evolution. Next one is critique.
Critique. Crítica.
Crítica.
Crítica. Critique is
Yes.
crítica. That's all about
Yes.
the accent. Where you accentuate.
Exactly.
Crítica.
And that's important.
Very important.
Next one is style.
Style, estilo.
Yes.
As in, este estilo del Colombian jersey. El estilo.
Oh my God. Next one is activist.
Activist? Oh, that's tough. It can't be activista. Because that sounds crazy.
That's what it is.
Activista?
Yeah.
That sounds like so, like Spanglish. Activist is activista?
Yes.
Okay, activista.
Okay. Next one is, this one is a good one. Establishment.
Establishment?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever said establishment. Establishment. I feel like if I wanted to, wow, you stumped
It's
me.
not gonna be a literal translation
I'm assuming not because I've never heard of establishment.
because the literal translation would not mean what we're trying to talk about on this episode.
Okay, so establishment is like an institution.
Exactly.
So I would say institución.
Almost there.
What is
But it's like an organization.
it? Organización
Yes.
is establishment?
So organización, fundación, those are synonym. And then it can also be like institución because institución is synonym of organización. Because establishment, the literal translation in Spanish is establecimiento.
Yeah.
And establecimiento in Spanish we use it more for like the physical thing.
Right.
Like this is el establecimiento, so it's the place where what it is, but not the meaning of establishment, which is the organization behind it.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Establishment is
Yeah. Organización.
That's organization.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill you. I might have to edit that out.
Next one is country.
Country. País.
Yes.
All right. Wait, but country,
Yeah.
two meanings. Country meaning your government country, the country that you live in,
Yeah, país.
país. But then country can also be
The countryside.
the countryside.
What is that?
The countryside would be el campo.
Yeah.
Right. So campo, country, but you would never say de mi campo.
No.
But you do say, this is my country.
Yeah.
In English, you say, this is my country.
But you don't say this is my country, meaning this is mi campo.
No.
No, exactly. So it's the same.
In English, we use country for two ways. Country music, meaning country like the
I know.
countryside.
I know.
And-
But it depends how you're using the word. And you have to say countryside. You cannot just say this is my country. Because the country is the whole thing.
Oh, but you can say I'm going out into the country.
How is it?
Out into the country. Like I'm going out into the country. I'm going outside of the city into the country.
Okay, that makes sense because in Puerto Rico we say vamos para la isla, and it's like going inside the island, but we are all in the island.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Wow.
Next one is
Words are tricky.
They are tricky. Next one is leader.
A leader. Okay. A leader is a... Ooh.
It's easy.
You might think it's easy because you have it in your... A leader is...
Very similar.
I don't know.
Líder.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Líder?
Líder. So the last one is role model.
Role model. Okay.
What is it?
I have no idea.
Oh. Okay. So it's modelo a seguir.
It's what?
Modelo a seguir.
Modelo a seguir. All right. Thank you. All right, another episode done. Next episode is going to be episode 27, Música Mundial. And on Art Life, I'm going to be talking about my process for making music, how I go about putting together the beats that I make, the music that you hear in the background of this podcast.
And on Culture Talk, we're going to be talking and reviewing World Cup songs in preparation to the World Cup.
Which is kicking off very soon.
Yes.
All right, and at the end of all that,
Hablando español.
peace.